County Sheriff has reopened the investigation into the death of Kendrick Johnson. The teen's body was found in a rolled-up gym mat in a high school in 2013. His death ruled accidental. Sheriff Ashley Polk says his office has finally been able to get boxes of documents to review given to them by the federal government. They'll also be re-interviewing people connected to the case. Sheriff Polk says he's in touch with Johnson's family, and while he's not saying anyone did anything wrong, he is going to follow the evidence and lead the investigation himself. He expects the review to take at least 6 months.
Okay, so y'all just heard that clip right there, and shout out to Stephanie Deuce for actually sending me this article that was posted on March 10th, 2021. And I remember when this, excuse me, you gotta forgive me, I'm just now kind of waking up. You gotta, excuse me, again. I remember when this story happened, and there were so many red flags, and I mean so many in fact, that was all over this case, all over this story. I mean, from beginning to end, like everything about this story just did not add up at all. Especially the part where they claimed that his death was accidental. I mean, when you look at the fact that he was rolled up in this mat, his shoes were off. And then if you knew how heavy those wrestling mats are, because that's what he was rolled up in, there's no way he could have did that by himself. None. Because those wrestling mats are so thick in material that it'll take more than one person to roll that mat up. Or in some cases, they'll have to use a machine of some sort to roll the mat up. And sometimes even use something to put it down. But if they don't use a machine, it definitely takes more than one person to do that. So it's no way that he could have rolled himself up into that mat and they called it an accident. And then when you saw that surveillance footage, which is the last thing that they saw of him when he went to the gym where he was found, you see that he's there and he kind of walks off and then it gets cut. So we believe that someone probably tampered with that because it was like, okay, where's the rest of the footage? There was also the speculation that, and this is the one where people are really leaning towards, that it was 2 PC boys that were involved with his murder, because that's what we're going to call it, because they don't want to call it that. We're just going to call it what it is. That it was involved with his murder, but they didn't go any further because apparently I think they said their dad was an FBI agent or he was working for the FBI or something like that. And then they just kind of let them off the hook. But the most glaring thing that made this story seem very off and not look like an accident like they claimed it was how his face looked. When I saw a picture of his face, he was so unrecognizable. I literally thought that the picture that I saw of his face was from a movie set, like it's like some prosthetic makeup that they were doing maybe for a zombie film or something like that. Like it looked that bad. It reminded me of Emmett Till. His face was completely destroyed. Like somebody beat him badly and his face started to decompose. And then when they said that they found newspaper stuffed in his head, I was like, this was no accident. This was definitely a murder. And the fact that they sat up there all those years ago, and it wasn't even that long ago, and tried to convince us, the viewing public, that after everything I just said, especially that last part, to try to convince us that that was an accident was a huge insult to our intelligence. But they did everything they could to cover this thing up and try to, shut this case down. And then, for the longest time, it's like, well, now this family's probably not going to get any justice because they shut it down almost immediately. Like they did not want to fully investigate this thing. And then, they tried to go after his parents and everything like that and tried to put them in the hot seat. Like they were the ones on trial for a trial that unfortunately never happened. That should have happened. Well, now fast forward to now, because this happened back in 2013. You're talking 8 years ago. 8 years ago. It'll be 8 years this year when that occurred. they are now about to reopen this case because they said that they have come across some documents, a lot of documents that practically are prying this thing back open. So there must be something there for them to reopen this case, because if it wasn't, they wouldn't have done it. Hopefully they get it right this time, have the right people in place so they can get to the bottom of what really happened to Kendrick Johnson. Like, this is a story right here that should have really blown up. Like, it should have really blown up. And this happened back in 2013. You got to think this happened the year after Trayvon Martin. And it barely got that much news coverage. And it should have gotten a lot of news coverage. But see, here's the thing. I think because of Trayvon Martin happening in 2012 and then George Zimmerman's trial being in 2013, which was the same year with him, I think that Zimmerman trial overshadowed this. And they probably buried this so much in the media that they didn't want another Trayvon Martin on their hands. But little did they know that the Trayvon Martin incident was going to kick off something that's still going on today in 2021. They probably didn't see it coming. And it's crazy to think that next year it'll be 10 years since the murder of Trayvon Martin, and what really kicked off this new wave of anti-black violence. Not saying that it wasn't there before, but I'm saying this was a new wave, like the incident with Trayvon Martin. That's what really kicked it off, because it literally was a wave that happened, and the wave has not stopped. It's been constantly going and flowing and moving in a very high force. But yeah, I never believed for 1 second that Kendrick Johnson accidentally killed himself. No. Or this was an accidental thing. No. Nope. And I don't think anybody who looked at this, who was of sound mind and sanity, could tell us with a straight face that this was an accident. No one accidentally rolls themselves up into a mat. I mean, they try to come up with every type of theory to back up that accidental claim. I think they try to say that he climbed into the mat or, and things like that. If you look at that space, there's no way he would have been able to just climb in there. Who would just climb into the mat just to climb in there? Allegedly, they said that he was taken out because some girl at the school liked him and the boys got jealous and then they killed him. Now, that one I can probably believe, because we've heard so many stories like that before in the past. But that part about him accidentally rolling himself up in that mat, no, those mats are heavy. The only way that could have happened is if he had help. And I highly doubt that he would, ask to be rolled up in a wrestling mat. And like I said, his shoes were off. His shoes were off. His shoes were not on his feet. The only thing that was on his feet was his socks. And his shoes was laid in the mat next to his legs. So somebody took his shoes off and placed them there. But they really needed to go back and really thoroughly look at that surveillance footage of when he walked in that gym and never came back out. Because that right there will tell you right there who was the last people in that gym with him. Who was the last people in that room with him, in that space. And then that's when you'll figure it out. And then that's the people you need to go after. Because this was not an accident. And I highly doubt it was a suicide. No, I'm not believing that crap. They can try, but I don't believe it. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. If you haven't done so already, make sure you text the number that is pinned down in the comments below so you can receive notifications every time I upload a new video.